Welcome to the June edition of This Month in Payroll for 2025. I'm Rowan Geddes, National Leader of PwC's Payroll Advisory and Operations Practice. This month, we'll explore the timing of paying termination payments, the 2025 Annual Wage Review decision handed down by the Fair Work Commission, and developments related to portable leave. First, when an employee terminates employment and doesn't work out their notice period, when does their final payment need to be paid? Is it in the next available pay run? Is it within 7 days of their employment ending? Or is it before the final day of employment? Final payments will often be made by payroll in the next available pay run. Alternatively, the Fair Work Ombudsman's website notes that it is typically best practice for an employee to be paid within 7 days of their employment ending. However, a federal court decision handed down this month, Jewell versus Magnum Australia, has highlighted that neither of these common practices are consistent with the strict requirements of the Fair Work Act and, in fact, could expose an employer to penalties. Dr. Jewell was the Chief Technology Officer of Magnum. On 21st of April 2023, he was notified that his role was being made redundant. He was partially paid his payment in lieu of notice and unused leave entitlements 11 days after he terminated employment, in what appeared to be Magnum's next pay run. Following ongoing discussions about his entitlement to a redundancy payment, Dr. Jewell also received a redundancy payment 2 months after termination and a final top-up payment on 3rd of August. In the course of an unlawful adverse action claim that Dr. Jewell brought against Magnum, Justice Champion of the Federal Court noted that Magnum had admitted late payment of his payment in lieu of notice, redundancy payment, and unused annual leave payment. Attributing the late payments to carelessness rather than intentional conduct, the Justice accordingly imposed penalties of $18,600, reflecting an additional 22.5% on top of the total payment owed to Dr. Jewell. Had the action been intentional, the penalty would have been higher. This case serves as a reminder that despite common practice, the wording of the Fair Work Act clearly states that payments in lieu of notice must be paid before an employee's employment is terminated. Specifically, Section 117.2 of the Fair Work Act states that the employer must not terminate the employee's employment unless the employer has paid to the employee payment in lieu of notice. This case follows a similar case handed down last year, Dorsch versus Head Oceania Proprietary Limited, where the federal court noted that Head Oceania's obligation to pay accrued annual leave crystallised upon the termination of the employment relationship and levied a $17,000 penalty on Head Oceania against unused annual leave of just over $8,000 for its late payment. So, how does this tie to the FWO's guidance that best practice is to pay the final payment within 7 days of terminating employment? Well, the FWO also carves out payments in lieu of notice, pointing out in their guidance that if the employer pays out the notice period, the employee's employment ends on the date that payment in lieu of notice is made. Processing out-of-cycle termination entitlements to match an employee's final day of employment creates operational challenges for payroll functions. So the desire to align the payment to the next pay run is understandable. However, this case does remind employers that for terminations where it is agreed that the employer will receive a payment in lieu of notice instead of working out the notice period, that payment must be made in its entirety before the employee's termination date. Alternatively, employers may wish to extend an employee's notice period to ensure that it aligns with the next payroll run. In this way, the final payment can be made while the employee is still employed and without necessitating an out-of-cycle pay run. Annual Wage Review. This month, the Fair Work Commission handed down its Annual Wage Review decision, granting employees a 3.5% pay rise in all award rates and the national minimum wage. The increase will lift the federal minimum wage from $24.10 an hour and $915.90 a week to $24.95 an hour and $948 a week, and will take effect from the first full pay period starting on or after the 1st of July 2025. The rise is greater than the current CPI increase of 2.4%, and is driven by a principal consideration that, over the last 4 years, employees who are reliant on modern award minimum wage or the national minimum wage have suffered a reduction in the real value of their wage rates due to the high inflation which started in 2021 and peaked in 2022. Although the increases only apply to minimum wage and award minimum wages, it is important still that all employers consider their impact more broadly. For example, where employers are paying an annualised salary with a buffer to ensure that the salary is above the award wage plus overtime and penalties, those annualised salaries need to be reviewed to ensure that the buffer is still sufficient. Where employers are paying employees under enterprise agreements or employment contracts that refer back to the underlying awards, those EAs and contracts need to be reviewed. The annual wage review also released some interesting facts about award coverage in Australia. Almost 21% of Australian employees are paid at the applicable minimum wage rates across 121 modern awards. More than 2/3 of these employees work part-time hours and more than half are casual employees. Employees paid at the minimum award rate are disproportionately female, so an adjustment to the modern award minimum wage that exceeds wages growth in the labour market will have an effect, albeit small, in narrowing the aggregate gender pay gap. The following industry sectors account for over 2/3 of all modern award-reliant employees: accommodation and food services, healthcare and social assistance, retail trade, and administrative and support services. As flagged last month, Justice Hatcher also confirmed that the Fair Work Commission will push forward with reviewing particular award classifications in order to eliminate gender-based undervaluation of work in awards. The FWC's next priority will be to review all professional classifications in modern awards, that is, all classifications for which a university degree is required as a minimum, that have not yet been subject to the review. The timing of this announcement aligns nicely with the release this month of the World Economic Forum's 2025 Global Gender Gap Report, which saw Australia rise to 13th out of 148 countries for gender equality, our highest ever ranking. The Global Gender Gap Index tracks countries against 4 key benchmarks: economic security, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. Economic security was a big mover for Australia this year, affected by boosting pay for female-dominated industries, increases to paid parental leave entitlements, including the provision of superannuation on paid parental leave, and introducing measures to make early childhood education more affordable. The timing also aligns with the Workplace Gender Equality Agency's publication of individual employee gender pay gaps over the last 2 years, investment into women's healthcare and education, and the policies implemented to address women's safety and tackling gender-based violence are also factors that are likely to have had positive impacts on Australia's ranking. On the other side, leadership is still an area for potential growth. Despite women representing just over 41% of the total workforce, in the Australian private sector, the 2024 WGEA data indicates that women still hold less than 29% of top leadership positions. Portable leave schemes. We have spoken about the rise of portable leave schemes, noting the recent Victorian court decisions which have the potential to expand portable long service leave in Victoria, as well as the introduction of portable leave schemes for community workers in New South Wales, South Australia, Queensland and the ACT. This is all leading up to the potential introduction of a national portable entitlement scheme for insecure workers, which the federal government has flagged for consideration. Therefore, it was interesting this month to note that the Northern Territory repealed legislation that would have extended portable long service leave to the community services sector, over concerns that it would have resulted in increased fees for parents using childcare and would be too costly for the government. We will continue to watch the portable leave scheme space for future developments. And finally, a reminder that from 1 July 2025, the reporting of lump sum back payments that accrued more than 12 months ago, will change. The purpose of separately identifying a back payment as lump sum E is to ensure that the employee is taxed on the back payment at the rate that they would have applied had they actually received it correctly and on time in the earlier tax year. This is particularly relevant where an employee's income level and effective tax rate has increased across time. Currently, if a back payment accrued more than 12 months ago, it is only treated as a lump sum E payment in single touch payroll reporting if it exceeds $1,200. However, from 1 July, the $1,200 threshold will be removed, meaning that all back payments which accrued more than 12 months ago will need to be reported as lump sum E, regardless of the amount, with the financial year identified in the reporting as well. It is important that employers check that their payroll software is updated and able to capture and report these lump sum E amounts correctly for STP purposes. And that's it for our June edition of This Month in Payroll. Good luck to everybody managing year end. And don't forget to update payroll systems for the increase in superannuation guarantee to 12%, as well as the changes to minimum wages and the new lump sum e-reporting processes. If you would like to revisit any of our prior updates, they are available on our website at pwc.com.au/payroll. And if you have any questions or need for support, please reach out to myself or your usual PwC contact. Until next time, have a great month in payroll.